So this is the S10 Plus versus the S22 Ultra, and without a doubt, you're definitely going to be seeing an upgrade going from the S10 Plus to the S22 Ultra, but is it really worth it? Let's talk about it. Starting off the design, obviously there's going to be some pretty big differences here. So the design on the S10 Plus is what you expect with an S-series phone. So it's pretty much, curved on the edges, whether it be the rails, the top rails, the sides, the glass on the back, the glass on the front is all curved, the corners of the display, corners of the back, it's all curved, everything. So it's a pretty comfortable feeling phone in the hand. It's also pretty lightweight, it's thin, it's nothing crazy here. It was pretty big when it came out, but in hand, it still feels pretty nice compared to the phones that are coming out nowadays. So the S22 Ultra is like your Note series design phone, which of course we all know it was merged from the Note design and took inspiration from it. So, you got your flat rails on the sides here. You got your boxy design, so the corners are boxy, the display is somewhat boxy. It's still a frosted glass finish, so it's still, glass on the back, and it's still somewhat slippery, similar to the S10 Plus here, except it's a glossy design, so it's a little bit more slippery on the S10 Plus, but still about the same slippiness, if that's even a word. But I still prefer the look of the frosted glass. And this colorway, the green versus the prism white, I know there was a prism green colorway, which I would have gotten that one, but I think that was an international model only. I could be wrong, but the green looks fantastic. I like the white as well, but the green one and the prism green would have been more better. But anyways, the design of the camera array is a little bit different here. So you have like a vertical array versus a horizontal array. So that means that when you put on a table, the S22 Ultra is going to rock a little bit, which isn't a big deal, honestly. But if you like that feeling, if you use your phone on the table a lot, then you'll like that better on the S10 Plus. Otherwise, that's basically it. And this is a thicker, heavier phone too. So come from the S10 Plus, it's definitely going to be a big difference when it comes to the weight and thickness and dimensions of the phone. So I would definitely recommend checking it out in store first, because, you might not like that huge, heavy, Note-like, big, boxy, big boy phone. So I would definitely check that out first before you commit to it without actually taking a look at it, because it is a big jump and something just to keep aware of. As far as hardware and ports and buttons here, it's going to be a lot of differences here. So both of them have USB-C, and they also both have one stereo speaker at the bottom and one stereo speaker at the top. Both sound pretty great if you ask me. I will say that the S22 Ultra though does sound a little bit fuller and more well-rounded. They're both pretty loud, but I just think the S22 Ultra sounds a little bit better when it comes to sound quality. And the S10 Plus doesn't have a headphone jack down there. Unlike the S22 Ultra, we've been missing it for years. So if it's something you rely on all the time and you're using every day and you need it for your day-to-day, then it's hard to give up. Yeah, you can get adapters, but it's still inconvenient. You have to go and buy an adapter, or you can switch to Bluetooth, which is honestly what I've done. I use Bluetooth for everything nowadays, for my car, for my headsets, for my earbuds, everything Bluetooth. So I didn't miss it. I don't miss it anymore. I'm just so used to it by now. But I will say that I did have to use the headphone jack when I was using the S10 Plus for a bit. And that's because I was having Bluetooth connection issues with the S10 Plus. So if I wasn't having a Bluetooth connection issue, I probably wouldn't have used the headphone jack at all. But that's something that I wanted to note there. But on the S22 Ultra, instead of the headphone jack, you have an S Pen. So if you're a heavy S Pen user, you're gonna like that. So most S users probably don't already use an S Pen. Personally, me, I never used the S Pen before I got a tablet. Then I got the S21 Ultra, which was capable of using an S Pen, and now I have this, which has the S Pen with it at all times. So I won't say I'm a heavy S Pen user, but it's pretty nice to use it for when you're cropping screenshots, or the best part is when you have like an ad in a game or an ad in an app, and they give you that little small X you have to click on, and sometimes when you click on it with your fat finger, it'll automatically go into the ad or whatever the ad's showing. So using the S Pen is actually really nice to be precise when hitting those X's on those ads. But that's pretty much the only time I'll ever use the S Pen. I don't really use it for anything else. Maybe I'll get adapt to it more in the future, but that's something that you don't have on the S10 Plus. No S Pen usage at all, no compatibility. It's just an S series phone. This, it's now like a Note merge phone, so you have that S Pen available. And then at the bottom, you also have the SIM card slot on the S22 Ultra. The SIM card slot on the S10 Plus is at the top, which also has a micro SD card support, which, similar to the headphone jack, if it's something you're constantly relying on, using every single day, again, it's hard to give it up. And personally, me, I've adapted. I've gotten over it. I've now adapted in a couple different ways. So first way is that I got an upgrade in my storage. Usually I get 128 gigabytes of storage, which is usually the base model. Now I have 256 gigabytes of storage, which was actually a free upgrade from Samsung for pre-ordering with them. And then I also use Google One, which is a cloud storage. So basically with Google Photos, I get 100 gigabytes of storage to use to save my photos. So that's what I do as well. And then lastly, I have my tablets, and my tablets are capable of storing a micro SD cards So that means that if I run out of storage on my phones, I'll simply just transfer photos, files, whatever it is that's taking up storage from my phone to my tablet. So not everyone has those privileges, or not everyone is using those type of ways. So, you got to consider it. Personally, me, like I said, I've adapted to it. I'm used to it. So it's no issue for me, but it's all up to you to decide if it's something it's worth giving up on. Both devices have the power button on the right-hand side of the device, but the S22 Ultra has it in a more natural position. So if you have it in your right hand, it'll be naturally on your thumb. If you have it in your left hand, it'll be naturally on your middle finger. So it's a natural and easy position to get to it. S10 Plus has it a little bit higher up, which at this point, if you've been using it for a while, you definitely get used to it, but it's nice to have it in a more ergonomic spot for your fingers. And the S22 Ultra has the volume rocker on the same side, so it's just a little bit higher up, which is not too bad. The S10 Plus has it on the other side, on the left-hand side, and it has a Bixby button right below it, which, it's just an extra programmable button if you want to use it for. So I just have it set up for notes, nothing special, so whenever I click it, it just takes me right to my Samsung Notes. And the S10 Plus also has a heart rate sensor on the camera array, so if it's something that you use a lot, again, it's hard to give up. But personally, me, I've adapted and I use a smartwatch now. So that heart rate sensor really isn't as important anymore. And then the display. So the S10 Plus has a 1440p Quad HD display, 6.4-inch 60Hz display, compared to the S22 Ultra's 1440p 120Hz Quad HD 6.8-inch display. So it is going to be a bigger and smoother display, but as far as quality and crispness, both of them are going to be very sharp and crisp and colorful. But I will say that the S22 Ultra definitely gets a bit brighter, not super significantly brighter, but it's still much brighter compared to the S10 Plus. But the S10 Plus is still definitely usable in direct sunlight and bright environments, and S22 Ultra will definitely get by 100%. And just the smoothness, the 120Hz definitely makes the S22 Ultra a better display. It's also a boxier display, so the corners of each display is a little bit different. So the S22 Ultra is a more boxy, still a little bit of curve there, but not as curved, versus the S10 Plus that has like a very curved display. And the edges, you got that, edge displays on both devices. I would say they're about roughly the same. If anything, the S10 Plus is maybe a little bit more curved, but it's still a curved display, so you're going to get those accidental touches sometimes, which can be kind of annoying, but I've gotten used to it at this point because you can get rid of those by using a case. And both devices have a cutout in the screen for the camera, but the S10 Plus has the pill cutout versus the punch hole cutout. So I definitely prefer the punch hole cutout. It's smaller, symmetrical, doesn't get in the way at all. Yeah, S10 Plus doesn't really get in the way at all either, but if I can reduce the amount of space that gets taken away from me, I would definitely choose the S22 Ultra without a doubt. So both displays are great for watching videos overall, for playing games every once in a while, but I definitely like the smoother display on the S22 Ultra, the bigger display on the S22 Ultra, the boxier display. Overall, I definitely prefer the display of the S22 Ultra if I haven't made it aware yet. Oh, and both devices, by the way, are water resistant, so if you get splashed on, that's something that you don't have to worry about on either device. So when it comes to everyday usage and performance, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 versus the Snapdragon 855, 12 GB of RAM versus 8 GB of RAM, honestly, yeah, this S22 Ultra is going to be overall a far better experience compared to the S10 Plus, but it's not to say the S10 Plus is a terrible performing phone. It's still putting up a decent fight. But like I said, overall, better on the S22 Ultra. So transitioning between apps, quickly opening them up, they will be pretty neck and neck sometimes. So if you do a comparison, a speed test to say, and you try to open up apps at the same time, the S10 Plus will sometimes beat the S22 Ultra, and then the S22 Ultra will sometimes beat the S10 Plus. So really, the quickness of opening up apps, isn't much of a big deal, but it is smoother when you're going between apps. So the S22 Ultra with the 120Hz, the animations definitely look a lot smoother. The S10 Plus I have it at 0.5x in the developer mode for the animations, but even then, it still looks kind of choppy sometimes. And I will say that, once you're like using the phone for your tasks, I'm in email and I'll be switching to Amazon and switching to Spotify and switching to another app. Sometimes that's where I'll find the occasional delay. So I'll be doing one thing and trying to go to a different thing. And sometimes I'll encounter a little bit of a delay there or a hiccup just because, it's taking its time to catch up with me. S22 Ultra, I didn't experience any of that. Everything seems to run smooth. Apps run pretty quickly and they're able to handle me moving quickly when I'm trying to do other things or have to move on to something else. It's able to handle that. And both phones can definitely handle multitasking if necessary as well. So I like to multitask by just simply using YouTube and picture-in-picture, or I'll use Reddit and YouTube, half and half. So I'll have a YouTube video at the top and then browse Reddit at the bottom. I definitely prefer it on the S22 Ultra only because it's a bigger screen, so I can watch my video in a little bit bigger version versus the S10 Plus that, it's a smaller screen, so it takes up or it has less space to work with. But overall, both are still great for multitasking. We'll say that the S22 Ultra does have a labs feature that allows you to force pretty much all apps to go into multitasking mode, similar to the Z Fold 3, where Samsung took it in their own hands. So if the developer didn't make the app compatible with multitasking, S22 Ultra or Samsung takes it into their own hands and forces that app to go into it, which is fantastic. But overall, multitasking and single app use has been pretty good, definitely a little bit better on the S22 Ultra, but not to say that the S10 Plus is bad at all. Gaming on here, again, that bigger screen, the HN1 definitely does really well. S10 Plus still does really well as well. Both phones definitely will heat up a little bit, but over time, I definitely noticed that the S22 Ultra was able to keep performing well in long periods of use compared to the S10 Plus that after eventually maybe like 15, 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour of use, it'll eventually start to slow down a bit, start to warm up a bit, and that's where performance is where it comes into play, where the performance definitely lasts a little bit better, or the better performing will extend for long periods of use on the S22 Ultra. And both of them have similar biometric features, so both of them have fingerprint sensor on the display. The S22 Ultra though has it in a more natural position and it's supposed to be a newer and bigger sensor compared to the S10 Plus. S10 Plus has it in a lower position and it's like the original OG sensor. So both of them I will say, tend to open up pretty quickly. If anything, S22 Ultra is just ever so slightly faster. And they both have facial recognition. I don't think one is more secure than the other one because they both, I believe, use 2D facial recognition, so it just relies on your camera. So both of them are able to handle it and use it, so that's something nice to have. And the software is just overall going to be better on the S22 Ultra only because right now I'm using Android 12 with One UI 4.1, I believe, versus Android 11 with One UI 3 point something, I believe. So you are going to get that Android 12 and One UI 4.0 update, but it is the last major update you're going to be getting, unlike the S22 Ultra, which is good till 2026 when it comes to OS upgrades. So that's one of the biggest things that push for you guys to potentially upgrade from the S10 Plus to the S22 Ultra because, it's the last major update. But that also means potentially that if you haven't gotten Android 12, One UI 4.0, that you could wait for that, try it out, and if it's still great for you, then you could keep your phone for one last year, definitely the last year. You could potentially keep this phone and then upgrade next year. And the S22 Ultra does have 5G, which depending on your area may not make a difference to you, but for me it does somewhat make a difference sometimes. In my area I'll get better performance with the 5G speeds compared to the 4G LTE speeds of the S10 Plus, but not a big difference, just something I want to know. But like I said, overall, S10 Plus still does a good job, S22 Ultra does just a better job. So I definitely would say S22 Ultra, will be a nice upgrade when coming from the S10 Plus. So when it comes to the cameras, the S22 Ultra definitely is going to be the better overall camera, but the S10 Plus does take still pretty good shots. Sometimes some of the shots I took looked very similar to the shots I took on the S22 Ultra. So when it comes to the front-facing cameras, I definitely prefer the S22 Ultra. The colors that I took, it looked more natural, better to my skin color, compared to the S10 Plus that made me look a little bit more fake and more washed out. Definitely a little bit more detail in the S22 Ultra. And in portrait mode, both of them struggled a little bit to capture my hair. My hair was all over the place because of the wind that day, but it was still a decent shot on both of them. I definitely prefer the S22 Ultra overall though for the front-facing for photos. But video, same thing. The colors that it took was much better on the S22 Ultra in my opinion, and then the sky was overexposed on the S10 Plus. Same issue happened when I was recording with the Pixel 6 Pro comparison. So the sky was still suffering with high oversaturation, or overexposure I should say. But overall, I did definitely just prefer the colors of the S22 Ultra. Both of them were 4K 30, so they both look crisp in quality. Just the colors looked much better on the S22 Ultra. On the back, I would say sometimes the S10 Plus didn't match the S22 Ultra in quality, but I would definitely prefer the S22 Ultra sometimes compared to the S10 Plus. So where I prefer it is definitely when you have to zoom in. So obviously it's got better zoom, so you can zoom in up to 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, and 100 times. So zooming in is fantastic on here. It gets some nice, some decent shots at 30x and 20x. Once you get to 100x, I definitely think it's questionable as to why you're zooming in that far. But the S10 Plus caps out at 10x, and 10x on here doesn't look that great. At most, I would zoom in at 2x. But otherwise, The front camera sometimes on the main took some really similar shots. Something I would say that the S10 Plus looked a little bit better when it came to the natural bokeh effect, because the S22 Ultra for some reason has this AI where it wants to like super sharpen or focus on everything that's in the shot. So it made things look weird. Like there was a shot I took with my phone and it looked kind of weird. So my hand was sharpened, the grass was sharpened, the phone was weirdly sharpened. Everything looked over sharpened to me. But then I turned that AI feature off and it made the shot look more natural and much better. The S10 Plus just, it just took the shot and it looked naturally good. But sometimes the S10 Plus would, with the scene optimizer on, would take some really oversaturated color shots. Once you turn it off, it makes shots look a little bit more natural. S22 Ultra, I would say, is like kind of in the middle of that. So it wasn't oversaturated, but it also wasn't too natural. So I definitely prefer that of the S22 Ultra. It took the right colors of some things. I also noticed that the lenses are a little bit different in wideness. So the ultra wide of the S10 Plus is a 0.5x. The ultra wide of the S22 Ultra is a 0.6x. And then the main camera, 1x versus 1x, the 1x of the S22 Ultra was a little bit wider for some reason on the S22 Ultra. And then the 3x, your main telephoto or your first telephoto is 3x versus your telephoto on the S10 Plus is 2x. So when I was standing in one spot recording a video, I was getting a little bit, or I was zoomed in a little bit more on the S22 Ultra compared to the S10 Plus. So that leads into videos. So videos, I would much prefer it on the S22 Ultra. Both of them are capable of 4K 30. S22 Ultra can record 8K if you want to. I'm not going to use 8K at all, but the colors look much more natural, much better on the S10 or the S22 Ultra. S10 Plus suffers with that oversaturation, making things look too colorful, just a little bit too fake in my opinion. So I prefer the colors on the S22 Ultra by far. And again, zooming in, you can zoom in further if you want to on the S22 Ultra. I believe the max is 20x, but even then, 10x means that it looks really good on the S22 Ultra compared to the S10 Plus's 10x. It just looks absolutely terrible when it comes to video. So overall, the main take points I would say is that if you're into zooming in, I would definitely say the S22 Ultra is going to be a nice upgrade when it comes to the main camera, and if you like taking front-facing photos, because that's where the S10 Plus I noticed where it suffered a bit. But otherwise, if you just take main shots, it's pretty decent. I forgot to mention night mode. So night mode, I'd definitely say it's a lot better on the S22 Ultra. So those are the top three things that was improved: zooming in, from facing, and night mode. It's much better on the S22 Ultra compared to the S10 Plus. So if that's something that's important to you, obviously get a real camera. No, I'm just kidding. But definitely would consider the S22 Ultra as your upgrade because it's get better improvement on your cameras. So when it comes to battery life, obviously it depends on your usage. But if you come from an S10 Plus, I'm sure your battery is probably not as good anymore compared to when it was when you first got it. So any new phone will probably be a nice upgrade in battery life. And for me, the S22 Ultra so far has been pretty good. So I've been getting roughly maybe a day to a day and a half of battery life out of my phone. So with screen on time, depending on my heavy usage days, so if I'm working, I won't get a lot of screen on time. I'll get maybe 2 to 3 hours, but on my heavy usage days, I'll get anywhere from 3 to potentially sometimes 5 or 6 hours. So, and it still gets me through my whole day from morning to afternoon. And both of them do have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, but I did notice that the S10 Plus uses the heart rate sensor on the back to notify you when you're actually charging stuff on the back of the device, which is actually really convenient because sometimes I don't know if I'm actually connecting it. I know you can hear it vibrate and stuff, but sometimes I'm confused as to whether or not you're actually charging the device that you place on here. And then the charging speeds are also different. So they both use USB-C, but the S22 Ultra uses 45 watts of max charging. Now, I do have the older 45 watt charger, so I'm not sure if this is the fastest speeds, but I can charge this device from about 10-15% to about 100% in roughly an hour and like 10 minutes. So sometimes it'll take under an hour, sometimes it'll take an hour and 10 minutes. So that's pretty quick if you ask me. S10 Plus takes roughly an hour and 15 to an hour and a half. So it does take a little bit longer, but it's not much of a longer time. So charging speeds are pretty good on both of them. I definitely think it's enough to shower, get ready, and be able to get a fully charged battery by the time you leave. So overall battery life, obviously I'm not going to compare them directly because it all depends on how you use up your S10 Plus and it all depends on how you use your S22 Ultra. So battery for me on S22 Ultra has been pretty good. So if you have an S10 Plus phone right now, should you upgrade to the S22 Ultra? Hear me out, but it's a bit of a tougher situation this time around, only because not only are you losing that headphone jack, the micro SD card slot, that stuff I'm over it. Like if you're not over that and you need that stuff, then I would definitely try to get one more year out of your phone. If it's dying on you, if it's suffering in performance, then I would definitely say you're gonna love it, but just gotta get over the headphone jack and micro SD card, man. It's hard, but just try. But you're also going from an S series phone to a Note-like design phone. So if you've never wanted a Note before, then I would say definitely don't upgrade, because you're gonna get a completely different experience. But if it's something you're curious about and you want to try out, definitely try it. I've always wanted a Note phone, finally have one, and I'm loving it. So otherwise, that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.